It's Lab Gorilla. Apologies for my radio silence. It's been a very trying time as a Milan fan, as I'm sure you all know. But I felt that I needed to do this and to get this off my chest. So I'm going to do a review of the 2023-2024 season from my perspective, a season that I call a Milan telenovela. To give you some background, I'm a Milan fan of almost 40 years. I have loved this club and its colours, and I have been there through thick and thin. I was fortunate enough to have seen Gullit, Van Basten, Ancelotti and Maldini play, as well as Kaká, Sheva, Inzaghi, Rui Costa, Cafu, Nesta, Costacurta, Baresi. I mean, I could go on and on and on. However, the events of the last season have shown me something that I just cannot accept, even after the Yong Hong Lee era. Now you might ask why? Why are you so upset by this? Well, it's because I cannot be lied to. I will not accept being told that what we are doing is success. Because to me, those messages are coming from a place of utter ignorance. So the story is going to be split into separate chapters. Chapter 1 is Start as you mean to go on. In my opinion, in order to get a full view of the situation, we have to go back to this picture, taken on May the 30th, 2022, 9 a.m. A man is standing in a crowd. He has a wry grin on his face. People around him are justifiably celebrating because Milan has just won their 19th Scudetto. However, unknown to them, this man, with a very dodgy looking thumb, was founder of the multi-billion-dollar investment management firm Redbird Capital, and he was about to initiate his strategic plan to shape AC Milan into a portfolio company devoid of any Milanismo. Fast forward a year, we have scraped into the Champions League because of Juventus's Cruz Valencia dealings, giving them a point deduction. A big player retires, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. The Curva Sud give him an incredible goodbye. Many people give Zlatan the kudos for galvanizing the squad during a Scudetto winning season. Yes, during this day, there were tears. However, unknown to us, and we weren't to know this, someone was waiting in the wings to drink those tears, and that this was a move to remove what I call the Milanismo from the fan base. Move forward to June. We get smacked by this headline. Paolo Maldini, technical director, sacked by AC Milan. Ricky Massara is also let go of. Maldini saw ambition and outlined plans to get a squad back to the pinnacle of football. The other did not agree, obviously Cardinale, and sought a financially sustainable model based on revenues. The two were simply unable to exist at the same time. But there's a problem here. The way Maldini was sacked is my biggest problem, and I've never forgotten it. This also caused the fan base to literally crack and split into two, into a side of outrage and a side of acceptance. So to the right, we have what I call the tolerators, fans who tried and still are trying to put colours above all. Their acceptance for Maldini's removal is I would say probably based heavily on apparent transfer market failures, such as Charles de Ketelaere for over 30 million euros, giving Origi a multi-million or multi-year contract for multi-million pounds and not renewing Donnarumma, Kessie, letting them go on free transfers. This side of the fan base also reminds us that if it wasn't for Juventus, we would not be in the Champions League. Okay, so that's one side. On the other side is what we have, and we call, what I like to call, the traditionalists, and I include myself in this. So these are fans who see Maldini's name and legacy as completely and irreversibly linked to the club. Not only is he one of the most decorated players in Italian football history, his will to win was undeniable, both as a player and a director. Traditionalists see him as part of the fabric of the club and understand that his name and personality hold such weight as to make players renew and sign contracts for Milan. And I should say that as a technical director, he has also tasted success in bringing us Scudetto. This split in the fan base has fueled great anger for the entire season, and the two sides have still not come together. Okay, so Maldini was released as well as Massara. So who would Milan employ to take over this role? Unknown to us, Redbird had a plan. Their plan was to use this triumvirate. They increased the powers of Pioli and Moncada, and together with Forlani, they would take control of everything within the club. I would point you to Milanistas 360 episode 35, Porto Rossoneri. This was a fun episode where Shane, Husney and I carried out a bit of a sham court session where I was the prosecutor going after these three guys. Shane was the defense lawyer and Husney was the judge. The next earthquake to hit Milan, we were hearing rumors that one of our most passionate players, Sandro Tonali, was being offered to Newcastle United. And indeed, that transfer went through for a record fee of between 60 and 70 million euros. With Sandro's leaving and Maldini's removal, we've basically lost all Milanismo from the club itself. However, Tonali's sale, the success of the previous season, making it to the Champions League semi-final, meant that we had enormous transfer market budget. And this triumvirate of Pioli, Moncada and Forlani went onto a spending spree. They bought Chukwueze from Villarreal, Pulisic from Chelsea, Musa from Valencia, Reindeers from Alkmaar, Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea, Okafor from Salzburg. He also brought in a sub-keeper in Sportiello from Atalanta and Luca Romero from Lazio on a free. Jovic came in from Fiorentina, and how can I forget, Caldara returns with Spezia loan. Now these were a huge number of players brought in. But something we noticed when we looked at their profiles is that none of these players had any real experience as defensive midfielders. And we questioned and kind of wondered how Pioli would cope with this. Would he change formations, or would he mold some players into defensive midfielders? If you see these players and their prices, they were brought in using a system that has become known and infamous within the Milan fan base as Moneyball. Cardinale believes that with his discussions with Billy Beans, the famous baseball statistician, that you can bring in players that have something to give, increase their value, and achieve success. Whilst all of these transfers were going on, a story broke out in Italy. So soon after joining Newcastle United, an investigation opened up and found several players in Serie A embroiled in illegal betting activities. Sandro Tonali, turns out, was central to these. The story was released by a paparazzo called Fabrizio Corona. And I will point you to episode 31 of Milanistas 360 or Bet on Ali, where we went through the entire scandal. Okay, so the next task for this triumvirate was to lighten the load. We had too many players in the squad. So Tonali went, the Ketelaere option to buy went to Atalanta, and as we now know, has had a very good season. Salamakers went to Bologna, had a very good season. In January, we got rid of Krunic to Fenerbahce after his poor back gave up on him and he could not play for Milan anymore. And Messias also went to Genoa. And Divock Origi was loaned out to Forest, where he did absolutely nothing. The cuts continued. This is all about releasing the wage. But I point out, one of the players that left us, Daniel Maldini, went to Monza. And that finishes chapter 1. Soon I'll have chapter 2 loaded, talking about our first games.